Good morning, Giuliano. This is Giuliano Martiniello, contributing editor of the Review of African Political Economy. After the end of the workshop, the Connections workshop in Accra, how would you assess the role of social movements in advancing progressive debates on the food question in African countries?
I think the workshop was amazing, exactly in bringing together academics and scholars, activists to broaden alliances in that regard. And you know that tendentially debates on social movements in Africa generally have not been that strong as elsewhere, right? As in Latin America, for example. But there is a trend, I believe, in African social movements, especially again in context like, for example, like Tanzania or West Africa with the CNOP, where peasants' organization, more than labor organization, I would say, have put at the core of the debate the question of food. Of course, around questions of food sovereignty, agroecology, and so on. So, conceptually speaking, I think that the peasants' organization or agrarian movements in general have reinvigorated the centrality of food and land questions in advancing progressive agendas in a context of neoliberal constraints and authoritarian populism. So that's what I see the kind of trend.
All right, thank you. So we've discussed the role of violence, structural violence, state violence in pushing down rural protests, and I know you've also recently been to Moscow in a conference dealing with agrarian issues and agrarian questions in the centenary of the Russian revolutions. What are the main lessons that you draw by comparing that kind of debate, which is probably more transversal and global, to the specificities of agrarian questions in African countries that we've discussed in Accra?
Well, I would say that, first of all, of course, taking stock of the lessons of the Russian Revolution is a very important historical, political, and analytical moment that we all need to reflect on, right? Especially in creating those kinds of necessary alliances between working classes and peasants. I mean, this was the central debate between Lenin and Chayanov. A debate that started, but then we know that revolution did not necessarily take this direction, right? It was more a workers-led revolution. And according to Theodor Shanin, the Bolsheviks did not have a program for peasants or for land, and they had to borrow it entirely from the socialist revolutionaries. So I think this debate is very important in today's context in Africa, where we see a convergence of movements, but these movements have different, I think, traditions. So on the one hand, we have still the significance, of course, of trade unions, syndicates, labor movements that have played an important role in the post-independent structures of African countries. But we see increasingly again the emergence of peasant-led movements, which in many ways are ranging in significance, right?
Yes, and in fact I wanted to ask you more, after a few years from Nyeleni, what do you think the prospects for food-based social movements in Africa are?
Well, again, there was a wave of pessimism about the prospects of social movements in Africa. I remember João Pedro Stedile defining African social movement as a nightmare. Yet, again, struggles around land enclosures, another set of struggles around questions of seed sovereignty, land sovereignty, food sovereignty, again, I think have helped really to consolidate some movements. And we have, I think, positive example, again, from West Africa, Tanzania, and Mozambique. I would like just to say one thing that I think is important, and which concern us, our role as scholar activists, that we need to set up significant methodological, not only theoretical debates on how do we do research on rural social struggle or agrarian struggles in general, especially in a context where neoliberal academia is promoting remote methodologies that, of course, happen at the expense of grounded research and fieldwork. While at the same time, researchers are increasingly relying on the simulation of digital alternatives. And so I think that for us, in order to play our role as, again, scholar activists, or perhaps even better, organic intellectuals, well, we need to create these preconditions by trying to bridge research with political praxis. I think that's the key of, one of the keys of the future of social movement.
Thank you very much, Giuliano Martiniello.